Hello, my name is Barbara Harrison. I am a Buncombe County Master Gardener. I have been gardening and helping people start new gardens for 5 years. I'm excited to share with you the process of starting a vegetable garden. Even in these difficult times, we can still grow food. This presentation is in 3 parts. This is part 2 of the presentation, and I will be talking about the different types of gardens that you can create. In the last section, we talked about the 4 most important components in choosing your garden site: good sunlight, good airflow, soil, and water. So in choosing the type of garden that you want to put in, one choice is to put an in-ground garden in, and this is pretty much the easiest to make. The biggest issue here is dealing with the grass. But as you can see here in this particular picture, we have 3 areas where they have dug up the grass. And what's nice here is that they actually have paths in between these 3 gardens. And that's important if you're doing an in-ground garden, because you want to be able to walk around the garden and you don't want it to be too wide that you can't reach in and take care of the plants that you put in. If you wanted to get rid of any of this grass, you could use cardboard, as I indicated in the last section. You could also use wood to place around the garden, as we see here, or you could use edging material to help in keeping the grass from growing in the garden. So consider this type of garden if you have a lot of space. Raised beds are approximately 6 to 8 inches above the ground, and they can have a variety of formats. This one here is what we call a mounded raised bed. And what you can do is you can put rocks or stone around that. And I want you to notice here this pile of leaves. This is really good to put in, to add to the soil to help enrich it. Or you can go ahead and construct a framed raised bed using lumber. And I will be talking about that on the next slide. If you can't do a framed raised bed right now, you can take a situation like this and frame that in later. So raised beds do have advantages. They drain water very well and the soil warms up quicker. And in a raised bed, you will have your native soil. And if you are adding any kind of amendments like compost, manure, or soil from a local mulch supplier, it's very important to incorporate those amendments in with your native soil. I run a community garden at my church, and when we put in our raised beds, we just went ahead and took the soil from our local mulch supplier and just dumped it into the raised bed. There was no mixing at all. Consequently, during the year when we had to water the garden, all of the water ran out of the raised beds into the paths. And I looked at this and I thought, what is wrong here? And then I realized that I should have mixed the native soil with the soil from the local mulch supplier, because our native soil is clay and it holds on to water. So that's an important concept that I want all of you to remember. To build the raised bed, whether you do it now or whether you do it later, usually a 4-foot by 8-foot raised bed is the way to go. 4 feet wide, 8 feet long, and usually the lumber is 8 inches high. You can get this lumber cut to these dimensions at Lowe's and Home Depot. The lumber can be treated or not treated. I have used untreated pine in the community garden to make our raised beds, and they've lasted approximately 5 years. And right now we're starting to see some of the wood that's rotting. You don't want to go wider than 4 feet because you want to be able to reach into the middle of the raised bed. In addition to the lumber, you'll need to purchase wood screws and corner braces that can help to hold that raised bed together. So something to consider: you can do this now, or you can wait until later on in the year to make a raised bed. Containers are a great and effective way to grow vegetables in small spaces. We see a variety of containers here. Most of your clay pots, such as this one here, will have drainage holes, but some of these other containers, such as these whiskey barrels and these buckets down here, will not. And you will need to put these put those drainage holes into those containers so that water can effectively drain out of the containers. And I want you to notice before I go to the next slide that they have these trays that are underneath the containers. And we're going to talk about why that is important. So when you fill up your containers, use a lightweight container mix. You don't want to use garden, you don't want to use yard soil. We talked about the drainage holes. If you have a container that is dark colored, it's going to get very hot, particularly if that container is on concrete or it's on a deck. So if you noticed from that last slide, there were trays underneath those containers. You can use pot feet, bricks or boards to get that container up off of the hot surface to allow for air movement so that the roots don't get heated and potentially die. With container gardening, usually you have to water more frequently, but it is a way to go if you're gardening in a small space. Vertical gardening is a possibility in any of the gardens I've described, and when you vertically garden, you are doing this for plants that can climb, such as peas, beans, and cucumbers. These are some interesting creative structures that are found at the Learning Garden at the Buncombe County Extension Office. These are cow panels, and they provide, as you see here, they provide a very strong structure and an easy way to grow vegetables vertically. And a nice thing about growing vegetables vertically, folks, is that you can just stand under this trellis and pick your produce. You're not bending down on a raised bed, and it really saves on your back. This particular structure here is a bean house, and the beans actually grew up string that we had attached to this, and we were able to actually walk into this bean house and harvest our vegetables. So be creative here, and I urge you to come by and look at these structures in our learning garden when things get back to normal. Other ways to grow vegetables vertically, and this is what I've used in my community garden, is to use garden fence posts, which we see here. And what's going over these fence posts is garden fencing, and we held that down with landscape clips. And what we're growing in this raised bed are cucumbers. This is another example of a creative type of trellis using poles and string, and they're probably growing pole beans. And something I'd like you to see in this picture is that these raised beds are using the square foot gardening concept, which is another topic worth learning about someday. So once a garden site has been decided upon, select the best garden for you, in-ground, raised bed, or containers. This concludes part 2 of Gardening 101. If you have any questions regarding the types of gardens that I've talked about, or the garden, feel free to contact our Buncombe County Garden Helpline. The number is here on your screen. Email questions and photos to the email address also on your screen, and these are their hours. Thank you very much, and I look forward to you joining me for part 3 of Gardening 101.